By the way, I wore my Fizbo shirt for you.
Oh my God, Fizbo is
Yep.
Cam's alter ego. He is,
Yes, very
always
nice.
clowning. Well, goddamn, man, we missed you. Well, what is going on with you?
Oh my God, what's not going on?
Good answer.
I don't, we're all surviving. I'm out there pitching some shows. I'm living life in Los Angeles. Boy, I wish I had a better answer for that.
No, but
Yeah.
I
look
swear I'm a
again.
better writer than that.
I'm jealous. It's been a long time since I've been in LA, and
Yeah.
I think a lot of times Joe and I, when we have guests either on Zoom or Skype or in studio, and they're living in LA, we'll sort of like really press the point of, is it really a demilitarized zone right now? And our mutual friend Lauren Savan will always
Yeah.
kind of lean towards the fact that it's not great. But again,
No.
I'm just a sucker for weather, so I don't give a shit. But she claims that it used to be Skid Row and now it's just Skid City.
There's there's a lot of that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty it's pretty homeless out here. You sort of can't. I mean, if you had to be homeless, it's sort of like this is the place to be.
No
The weather.
kidding. I don't get why they're here. Yeah, and
I've never gotten why. I mean, yeah, it doesn't make sense. It seems like some homeless people are making some poor decisions. I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna
Yeah.
come out. Yeah, I mean, it's bad. I mean, the one advantage LA has to New York, apart from the weather, is it's also a disadvantage. It's so sprawling.
Yes.
So depending on where you live, we have a homeless problem in this country, and Los Angeles has always been a trend center, for better or worse.
We're right. We're right there with you. Things ain't much better here. The whole thing with LA again. Like I've never wanted to be one of those cliche New Yorkers. It's like goes to LA. It's like, oh fuck this, fuck that. I love it.
Nope, that's me. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, not to quote what Randy Jackson, but I love LA. I love it every time I'm there.
Randy
There's so
Newman,
much.
Randy
Randy
Jackson
Jackson.
was more like I wasn't feeling that dog.
Yes.
A little pitchy.
Old school American Idol. I hate when you edit me. But yes,
I'm
Randy
sorry.
Newman. I always love, every time I'm there, I have a wonderful time. There's so many cool, fun, if you know the right people there, places that are just
Yeah.
sort of, that you find that are just so cool. I just hate driving. And I've
Yeah,
never owned a car in my life, and I want to keep it that way. And that would be the big NO as far as possibly living there.
Yeah, I love to drive, so I've always loved driving, so that part is good. I mean, I grew up in Jersey, lived in New York, and then moved out here in like '88, and you spend the first like 7 years like pizza's not good, they don't know how to make bagels, people are and then it's like I remember the first time. It was maybe like I'd been living out here 7 years. I was back in New York City, and I remember thinking, "Ugh, I can't wait to get home." And I was like, "Oh shit, home's there now." And
Yeah.
now I've lived here well more than half my life. So my kids are native Californians. So I embrace it. I have friends here. There's a lot that sucks for sure.
I'm fascinated by this. Congratulations, and I was raised to not mention money, so I won't
Please
say
don't.
how much you sold it for, but well done, sir, and can I have a
Yeah.
loan? You recently sold a Manhattan Beach property
Yes.
that was, and well done on how you sold it, but it was before you, I believe, owned by one Shaquille O'Neal.
There's the story has
older.
it's even more. So the house was built by Kenny Brett, George Brett's baseball player's brother, and they lived there for a while. Then they rented it to Shaquille O'Neal when he came to LA back in the day.
Okay.
And then he left and I bought it. Funny story. You never saw more disappointed children than on the Halloween that I answered the door. And they're like, one kid actually said to me, 9-year-old kid said, "What are you, his lawyer?" Which felt super anti-Semitic.
And
Thinking
super
that,
LA.
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, and then I mean, I had to sign an NDA about like who he sold it to this time, but it was like, he leaked it. It was all out. And then the quarterback Jared Goff bought it from me. So it was
Oh
like,
my God.
and so it's been Sports Dynasty, last picked, and I mean like in elementary school, I was picked last behind a kid whose nickname will describe him, Scoliosis Pete. And so they picked Scoliosis Pete,
I'm sure he had a great personality.
and then they went with Zuker. So it did not. But like Manhattan Beach is sort of it's Hollywood for sports guys. I mean, it's like all the LA Kings live
I didn't know
there.
that.
Our the public high school there is basically the Olympic volleyball team. Like it's a feeder from that to. So it's a very sporty place. I didn't know that when I bought there, but yeah, I mean, I had that house for over 20 years. We put a lot into it. My wife and I, separated. We're very close, and we were probably going to wind up selling anyway. But yeah, it was sad to watch it go. But then the money made it a lot easier.
Sure.
It's weird how that works. I should
Yeah.
add that the reason that Joe said very quickly, I bet he had a great personality is, and I can't emphasize this enough, she's not dying from scoliosis, she's living with it. But this poor little creature in high school, and this is why she has a good personality, frankly.
Oh my God.
She had a back brace in high school. She had scoliosis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Or as I like to call her, Richard III.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You've never
Yeah,
called me
no.
Richard.
I call you Richard III behind your back all the time.
It
Yeah.
was it was terrifying. I remember when we all got tested for it, and I know Pete, and there was this other girl, Jane, and it was like, that was a tough card to get drawn, I'm sure.
Yes.
It made her the girl that she is today.
Yes, same in school is how they found it. Y'all had to go into the locker room and bend over in front of the nurse so they could
Yeah.
look at the curvature, and then after a series
Is that
of
true?
Yes, after a series of appointments, I was fitted for my Boston back brace. Wore it for 4 years.
4 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did not wear it to gym class though. I had to take it off for gym class, so I couldn't get out of playing sports, unfortunately.
Oh, that's a lose-lose.
Yeah.
But I think that's the only reason she's funny, is because if she was
Oh.
just always hot, fuck that. Yeah, she would
Yes.
be absolutely abominable.
Yes.
But
No,
that made her tough.
It's the worst. I think it's like those are the most interesting people, the people who bloom late. And when the people are hot all the time,
Oh, yeah.
I heard this joke, which is based on truth. I was like in Beverly Hills, and I heard this like 85-year-old woman, like telling the most boring story that she thought was really interesting to a lot of other boring 80-year-olds. And when I was looking at her, I thought to myself, "Oh my God, you must have been so hot," because she thought she was so interesting.
Oh yeah.
Like it didn't ever, everybody was listening to every word she had to say for so long.
Yeah.
Well, and by the way, one last question because we've got a lot more to talk about. But
Sure.
I would say that you and I are normal sized. I'm not going to say
Yeah.
we are normal sized people. Shaq, I don't think anyone would say there's anything normal sized about him. Who was more comfortable in this home? I mean, was it built more for him or built more for you?
We had high ceilings for sure.
Yeah.
I got a little lost in it. It was because sometimes it became a little Sistine Chapel to me in certain rooms, as a 5'9"er. But yeah,
right
it
there
was-
with you. And and then real quickly, and this will show you what an obsessive I am. There was a great Modern Family episode where Cam and Mitch go to spring training, and George Brett is
I
the
know.
featured guy. Was that a connection made via his brother and the property, or a total coincidence?
No, in fact, I never, oh gosh, I never knew him. I wasn't on that shoot when that happened. He was sort of a last minute addition. So I always regretted not going over there. Oh, there's my old house.
Do yourself a favor and Google George Brett and shitting stories.
Oh, it's the best.
Oh, you've already done it. Yeah, okay.
Oh, that more than anything led to us hiring him.
Oh, God. Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And by
yeah.
the way, I've already piqued Joe's interest. She's quite the
Yeah,
fecophile. Yeah, he loves talking about shitting himself.
Oh, how nice.
Well, you do like that stuff.
Yeah, but
She's getting lost in the eyes of your various glamour shots.
Yeah, as I'm sitting in my the condo I'm renting until I buy something here in Marina Del Rey, I'm thinking like I used to have it all.
yeah.
Boy, but I get the NBA vibe though. That's huge. Yeah.
It was especially for Manhattan Beach, and some of that is staged. I didn't have that, but it was really I've never made a good investment in my life ever, like ever. Like
Yeah.
if I invest in something, it will tank. And that house was the one thing that that was good.
Well done.
Yeah.
And you deserve it. A lot of people there don't.
Thanks. Yes,
Speaking
no, I deserve it more than anybody.
Yes.
Sure.
speaking of how do I segue this?
By
I
the
can't
way,
wait.
her segs are legendary for being
I'm excited.
absolute awful diarrhea. So get ready for this one.
Best in the
Speaking
business.
of a walking piece of shit,
Yeah.
I don't know which one you're going with.
we are going to talk about Dan Schneider.
Oh,
my God.
yes! Oh my God! I love the fact.
Okay, so unless you've been living under a rock, you have probably heard about a new documentary series called Quiet on the Set. It talks about sort of all these Nickelodeon children's shows, and more specifically, the producer of The Amanda Show and all that, Dan Schneider, and the toxic work environment / problematic and sort of allegations that have come up about him. I watched episode 1 yesterday. I think 2 or maybe 3 have also come out. But
1 and 2 are.
he, embattled kids TV producer Dan Schneider has denied toxic workplace claims, which includes sexualizing child actors on the Nickelodeon series he created and ran. Everything that happened on the shows Dan ran was carefully scrutinized by dozens of involved adults and approved by the network. A spokesperson for the prolific kids TV producer of hits like Amanda Show, all that, like I said. This was a statement given to The Hollywood Reporter. Had there been any scenes or outfits that were inappropriate in any way, they would have been flagged and blocked by this multi-layered scrutiny. The spokesperson for Schneider said the kids' TV producer's script secured network approvals in both New York City and Los Angeles. Again, they're saying not only did TV networks have to approve, but there were always adults, caregivers, guardians on set who were at rehearsals and filming.
Yeah, but you've seen stage moms. They don't give a shit.
Well, yeah, they kind of get into it. So this docuseries is going to be a 4-parter. You hear from the old actors, old writers. So in this first episode, they get into the writer's room, specifically speaking to the only 2 women who were hired to work on the Amanda Show, and they talk about that toxic environment, and it just sounds awful. It was so awful, in fact, that one of the women filed a lawsuit against him, and they settled. And so he had a smear against him kind of from the beginning, but that didn't really seem to stop him. Other actors we're going to see in future episodes, Drake Bell, who was the former Drake and Josh star, alleges that he was abused at the hands of Brian Peck, who was a former dialogue coach. He was convicted of sexually assaulting a Nickelodeon child actor in 2004. Just like super problematic. I mean, Danny, obviously,
Doesn't sound like a fun viewing.
obviously this is sad. There's a lot of allegations, but also some convictions. But the thing that I'm getting from all of this is if I ever have a child, I'm not going to let them go into show business. It just seems too risky.
Even in the best case scenario, it's a crapshoot. I've seen it before, and a lot of times I've been in situations. This wasn't the case on Modern Family, but where it was the parents who were who were problematic. We had one problematic parent who famously she liberated from. But that show, a couple things. One of those women, and she worked on Modern Family I really like her, Christy Stratton. And I knew she was over there. I didn't know the extent to which she had been maligned while I worked with her. I sent her a text because I couldn't believe it. and she's a great writer, and those stories are just horrible. And I had gotten calls from, I'm not going to out them. I had gotten calls from other young writers so I had met Dan on that show. My friend Will Calhoun, who they mentioned in this, was co-created What I Like About You, the Amanda Bynes show that was on the WB, I believe, and it was his foray into doing something not on Nickelodeon. And so and Will is the greatest guy and was constantly, apart from anything, saying this guy's a freaking monster and a hack and terrible. And he would like, I would, after the show I was running, come down and help um, run interference so this guy couldn't walk all over everybody. And he was just
Wow.
foul. And I did not know the creepy. It was one of those things, there's sometimes you find out somebody is creepy and you're like, oh my God, really? There's at no point when this story broke, and this story broke a long time ago, did anybody think nobody was surprised this guy was creepy, and what was going on with on his sets. So I mean, it couldn't happen to a worse guy. So I'm happy that he's got comeuppance on this. I don't know if you read that book by the girl who I'm spacing. The book's called "I'm Glad My Mom Is Dead." And
Yeah, she was the star of iCarly, I think.
iCarly. She was the second on iCarly. I'm just spacing on her name. It's brilliant, and she very obliquely points to him as well. And by the way, the point he's making in that apology letter about everything went through Nickelodeon and the parents were there it's absolutely right, and they are utterly they let this happen. I mean, I remember about Cosby. The Cosby rape stuff was going on years before he was canceled.
1,000%. Yeah.
And people knew that he was doing it and let it happen it was well known.
Yeah.
And so that's all, the fact that Nickelodeon let him be a monster does not make him any less of a monster.
Yeah. And they were giving examples of sort of the over-sexualized and adult theming. One of them being there's a character that Amanda Bynes played called Penelope Taint.
Yeah.
Like taint. The space between, the balls and the butthole.
I know what it is.
But Bill, I wasn't sure. And, these women are kind of like, okay. And then producers from the network were like, what is this name?
Yeah.
And Dan described it as, taint, like tainted,
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay. They also showed footage of Ariana Grande when she was on her show doing now looking back, sort of questionable, very adult behaviors that almost look like webcam sexual stuff.
I didn't know she was on Nickelodeon.
Yes. So yeah, it's one thing. We've all seen children's programming where there's adult jokes. It's stuff that the parents can enjoy while the kids are enjoying it. But when the children are in fact the stars of these shows and they're the ones doing the adult jokes, that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
No, you have to be, every time I've worked with kids, a lot in my career, and you are always very, very careful. And in fact, if something is sort of easing up to the line in anything, we'll meet with the parents, we'll meet with the kid, we'll talk to them, or we'll segregate them from the other part of the joke that that the actor kid does not have to be subjected to, because yeah, it's gross. It's gross, and it's gross to sort of let that. But when people are printing money, they let them get away with it. I mean, Dan was a cash cow for them, apart from also looking like a cow. So
he was much older, and I'm sure he was playing a teen, and he was 25. This is a little before your time.
Yeah.
But that taint thing reminds me of Growing Pains. Dan, you remember the sidekick to Kirk Cameron was Boner? Yeah,
Boner.
That was his name. Boner.
Yeah. But at least that was like a primetime show.
And I'm sure they're like, the early 20th century Boner, you're making a mistake. And Boner always makes mistakes. And I'm sure they all had a good giggle on that one. Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Bukkake in room 22.
He's a Greek owner of a deli.
Yeah,
Come
yeah.
on.